Hello and welcome to the Securosis Firestarter. I think this one's going out on May 5th, which is hopefully a Monday, but I don't want to check my calendar right now. Mike, just you and me today.
Yeah, we finally ditched that Adrian guy. God, it's taken what, almost 5 years. We finally got rid of him. No, he's actually, and you know what I wanted to do was I wanted to take like 2 minutes and find an image of somebody basically prostrated praying at the temple of Warren Buffett, and I was going to Photoshop Adrian and Gunner's heads on there because that's actually where both of them are this weekend. They went to Omaha to enjoy the Oracle of Omaha's annual festival. So he is absent today in absentia, but obviously sends his regards and best to all of our loyal followers for what that's worth.
So when we decide to do a 401k, we should put him in charge of our fund or something. Is that what I'm learning from this?
Well, it may take 4 or 5 years for us to actually put away enough money in order to buy one share of Berkshire Hathaway, but that's a different, that's a different.
Okay, got it. Yeah. So, anyway, going to the work stuff this week. We are not going to necessarily talk about something in the news. I mean, slightly in the news. There's actually a post by Andrew Storms. He runs DevOps over at Cloud Passage, and Andrew, we know, comes out of the he was what, N-Circle before?
Yeah, he was at
remember?
N-Circle.
Yeah,
yes, I would N-Circle. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's been around for a while. And basically, it was Sec DevOps, security automation by example, and it was about a firewall rule change. I'm going to be writing up a response to this pretty quickly, but this is something obviously we've been talking about. So you've been covering the future of network security stuff lately, and a lot of digging in deeper into SDN. I've been doing a lot of the DevOps stuff specifically, and doing a bunch of presentations and talking with a bunch of orgs about that, and even actually doing some back-end stuff with some of them. And what fascinates me is this whole debate, because I actually think there's no such thing as Sec DevOps, even though I have it in a couple of my presentations. It's all DevOps in my mind, and we need to get away from this thing like we in security are special children.
Right. Yeah.
All right, go.
All right. So
Dig
this
in.
is so it's funny. So one of the guys in. So I was at Jen Manella's conference this week. So her family business, CAD Systems, have their annual Hot Topics conference. A lot of fun down in Greensboro, North Carolina. And I gave the future of network security pitch, again, largely based on a lot of the work that you've done, Rich, in terms of kind of how a lot of the cloud and mobility and a lot of those activities are really going to impact security moving forward. And I've kind of tuned that a little bit. But one of the folks at the end of the presentation asked a pretty interesting question. And it was really about, kind of how does security play in this moving forward, right? How do we carve out that role? Who's responsible for a lot of these things? And the day before I gave, Jen and I did our neurohacking or mindfulness presentation. So I had the mindfulness on the brain. And, I think it's actually a pretty apt metaphor for the transition that security folks are going to have to make, right? For a long time, it's been about building an empire. For a long time, it's about, having control and being in control of the enforcement points in order to implement and enforce those policies that we've dictated and govern, whether they're from mandates or they're from, business requirements, what have you. We as security people have had to have control over those enforcement points. And the reality is, as we look forward and you see a lot of the things that are going on in the DevOps community, you see a lot of things that are happening at the infrastructure layer with cloud computing, with mobility, a lot of the fact that you don't know where your data is, you don't know what devices they're coming onto, this idea of having separate choke points, this idea of having, a non-integrated type of capability from a security perspective, it's just not going to move forward. Right? The whole concept is just not going to move forward. So, to get back to the mindfulness concept, what security has to do is we kind of have to lose our sense of self in order to move forward. Holy crap, that's deep, isn't it? Wow, that's deep. Security has to lose our sense of self in order to survive, but it really does. So your point is exactly right. There is no Sec DevOps. There's DevOps. There is no network security. There's network operations, right? There is no data center or virtualization security. There's just managing operations in the data center over time because we're finally at a point where the architectural constructs are coming together where we're going to be required to build security in. We've been talking about this for a long time, but I don't know. I mean, what are you seeing, right? I don't see any other way to do it rather than truly build it in and not have it be truly a separate function anymore, with the exception of program management and compliance reporting.
Yeah, I mean, David Mortman is watching us live, and he couldn't actually join us today, but he was submitted a comment here that, there's been a lot of discussion about DevOps, and my eye line is, as I'm looking at my other screen here to catch the chat window, is DevOps is about being about empathy, and so he liked that connection with mindfulness. I've been looking at it from a different way, which is security, because of legacy reasons. Nothing we did wrong, nothing about our culture, nothing about our profession. We were brought in after the fact to basically defend things. And a lot of security is built into stuff, but especially in the early days, it really, really wasn't. And so we had to build this model of, there are two aspects of it. One is we had to, at a technical level, rely on sticking our stuff outside everything else. We just weren't integrated or well integrated, and that's because we had routers, and we had the internet, and we had to build firewalls to put in between. And then eventually, though, if you actually look at the SMB level, that stuff's all integrated. I mean, your basic firewall and your basic whatever is all built into what you're doing. Same thing on the endpoint. The main reason that antivirus isn't fully deeply integrated into our operating systems, or primarily Windows, you don't really need it as much on the others, is the AV vendors all threaten to sue Microsoft for antitrust. We know that's why. Microsoft's been spending years to try and get, kind of free, effective options out there for the users, and say whatever you want to. I mean, but that is very, very specifically the reason we don't have it. It's a market kind of force. And so security is just forced to be on the outside for a really long time. Now, as you move into, if you look at how DevOps really works, DevOps about deployment pipelines, DevOps about continuous integration, DevOps is all about standardization. And a lot of security people get hung up on the fact that, oh, it's DevOps. It's, man, I don't want my developers pushing code without any checks. That's ridiculous. And really, if you actually understand what it is, that's not how it works.
Right.
I guess you could build it that way. And as Hoff likes to say, if you're crappy at your existing operational models and frameworks, you're not going to be any better when you move to cloud and DevOps.
It's not just Hoff, right? That's an old adage, back from my EDI days, right? If you have a crappy process, automating that process is not going to help, right? It's just going to make you do crappy things a lot faster.
Yeah. And so we've just built an entire profession around something because that was what was given to us. And now that's changing, and the opportunity is changing. And to be able to be deeply integrated. Now, the other piece of it is we do need separation of duties. But that's the kind of thing that when you dig in and when you start to understand and you get a little creative, you can fully implement. And so this is why I've just become the biggest fan of DevOps. Because, for example, your developers may be doing 10 commits a day, pushing 10 production code updates a day, and which is done in some really major things that people use every day. And that is fully audited, runs through a full suite of security checks. Things are flagged if they need a manual check that's involved. You can actually use things like tools like feature flagging, so that something is security sensitive, like an authentication model, that always goes through a manual review, while a change to just the web interface just blows through normal, assuming it passes all of its checks, its automation, and its testing. You just get this incredible standardization. Mortman just sent in, it's about standardizing and it's about openness. More communication, more openness, everybody seeing what's going on, everybody being responsible and accountable, everybody knowing at any given point in time the live state of what's going on throughout that entire deployment pipeline, and all of that being standardized. I'm a security guy, man. You standardize, I am happy, because then I can insert my security controls and know those are automated and standardized.
Increase velocity, compartmentalize and chunk things up in such a small aspect that no one change is going to kill you, and make it very easy to roll back should something go haywire, right? So again, chunk, and again, that's just the way things are going to happen. So this idea that you've got a choke point, right? This idea that you've got a specific gate that security has in the middle of things, just not going to happen, right? Visibility is a very similar type of situation too. You're not going to be able to put a box in the middle of the process. You're just not, right? So can you tap stuff maybe from an incident response standpoint? Maybe. right? We're hearing some things that, some APIs will be emerging in order to make that happen, but you're not going to be able to put, kind of this whole concept of inspection points at the network layer, into a lot of these DevOps and cloud driven application and technology provisioning infrastructure environments. It's just not going to happen. All right. So we as security folks, again, have to evolve. We have to move on from the way it was always done. And again, I suspect there are going to be a lot of folks that look at this similar to how a lot of the mainframe people kind of viewed all of these crazy little servers and client server things that happened back in the day, right? When I was just a kid, getting out of school and starting to play around with these things, right? Oh, that's not the way to do that. And, you had some folks that just were stuck in the old world. And you know what? They became oil. At the end of the day. And we're going to have a similar type of thing here. You're going to have a whole mess of security folks that just aren't able to make the transition because the world is changing, folks. Get on board, understand what that means to you or not.
Yeah, and look, it's the I know some people still think this is a fad because it's got a cute name. I mean, how could you possibly take DevOps seriously?
Yeah.
And they've got their cool little DevOps.
Do they have plush toys?
I don't know. Maybe we need a mascot. Definitely.
It's true. We don't. Linux has a penguin, right? DevOps needs something. Ask Shimmy. Shimmy needs to get on that quick.
Yeah, Alan Schibel from DevOps.com, where I've also been writing some stuff. Unfortunately, I think I'm gonna write more there than Securosis, but that'll reasons for that will be at some point I'll catch up on our blog. But no, I mean it's not something you necessarily take seriously. But here's the thing, like and even I was like, DevOps, it's cool and everything. I love that, but is that going to be where the world's headed? And then you actually you look at kind of the cloud. You look at the economic advantages of DevOps. You read the Phoenix Project. You see the ties between that and manufacturing and lean manufacturing and the way things are done today. All of a sudden, you spend the time doing that research and reading. I just actually was talking with a client yesterday. Their CIO is making Phoenix Project mandatory reading for the entire organization. It's just handing out the books to everybody, and it's because it's just so clear that that's the way things should be done. Now, maybe the minutia of the details, I mean, those are clearly going to change over time. Now, that's all very focused on deploying software, writing and deploying applications. There's another piece of this, which is there's a lot of infrastructure we have, which it's not DevOps. You're not writing it yourself. You're not building your own code. You're not running it through a deployment pipeline and continuous integration tools. And the next area of research that I'm kind of getting interested into is applying a lot of those DevOps techniques to COTS software, commercial off-the-shelf software that we need to deploy both on-prem or in our cloud environments. And I know some people are going to say, yeah, you just kick everything over to software as a service, remote hosting, and you get rid of your infrastructure. Yeah, you can get rid of a lot, but and I do believe a lot of that will get pushed to various, secure public cloud providers. But that's kind of far away. And those benefits are often not as quick and easy to realize today because the security disparities among those providers is so large. So I think that's an interesting kind of area as well, is to steal those techniques and now apply them in different contexts.
Into COTS, and one of the other things that really came across, pretty clearly when I was given this presentation this week was just the importance of security folks understanding and getting back to, kind of what were probably your programming roots, right? Because that gets back to a lot of the software-defined security stuff, Rich, that you've been, working on, which is all this stuff is going to be scripted, all this stuff is going to be automated, it's going to have to work through some kind of orchestration layer, and that means you're going to have to learn how to script and how to program and how to do all those things that you probably didn't want to do when you went into security, right? Sorry, it's back. So you're really going to have to bone up on a lot of those skills as well. Again, if you want to be a security professional 5 to 7 years from now. That's a big if. Everybody's got a choice, right? Everybody's got a choice.
I think it might even be longer than 5 to 7 because it's not just security. So I meet a lot of security people when we're out at conferences and stuff that they want to write policies. They don't get onto technology the way we do, and they don't have that kind of love of they don't see themselves as being technologists anymore. very policy oriented, very compliance oriented, and I think that's going to be an inhibitor to a lot of people in security. And the thing is as they get more senior, they spend less time because honestly, sometimes because they just don't have time to keep up with this stuff. Other times it's just because that this is a job for them. It's not a calling or
Right.
whatever. You know,
Passion. Yep.
yeah, and passion like it is for us, and so they lose those technology connections. That's not just in security. That's in a lot of other areas of IT. Working with somebody recently, they're going to move to a cloud provider that doesn't even have auto scaling, and they're doing that because
Oh, you
it's
mean you mean a hoster?
yeah, it's a remote hosting.
Yeah. Okay.
Tons
Just
and
just
tons of
wanted
people
to make sure we were clear on vernacular there.
tons of people think they're in the cloud and they're really just moving to remote hosting
Yeah.
because it's familiar to them and they don't get the economic benefits, they don't get the operational model benefits, they don't get they can't leverage things like DevOps things. And if they do, they have to build everything themselves. And so this is a really slow transition. I think it is so fundamentally disruptive and such a different way of thinking on so many levels that and a lot of the people making the decision don't have the core interest in some cases or even skills. They can build the skills. I don't worry if you don't have skills, you can build skills, but if you're not interested in building the skills, that's a problem. And so the people who want to focus on that level and they don't want to learn how this stuff works, I think they're going to be the dinosaurs. Not just that, but they're going to hold their organizations back. They're going to kind of restrict their ability to operate in the future, but it may be 10 to 20 years, not 5 to 7 years before that hits.
Well, I mean, people are still programming front end processors, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of them, but still,
Yep.
and we're 15 years, after that was supposed to be all gone. I get it, right? But I do think that because of the agility that you are afforded from a business model standpoint, you're going to see this evolution happen a lot faster than a lot of us would expect.
Yep.
One man's opinion, right? I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time, but it just feels to me like something that is, it's contained, so you can deploy it in certain places without really disrupting everything, and that's just different than kind of a lot of the technology evolution that we've had in the past, right? So it's really building incrementally off of the stuff that we've already been doing, as opposed to just kind of moving towards a fundamentally different way of doing stuff. So I mean, we'll see, but again, you're hearing it from us, right? If you're not kind of thinking about some of these things, if you're not at least getting smart about it, and even if you are at the policy level, you've got to understand how your policies have to change, how your enforcement points, how your architectures are going to evolve, because the way we're provisioning, the way we're delivering technology in the future is just fundamentally different.
Yeah, I mean, and you brought up, kind of the key point to this. It's compartmentalized. You don't have to switch your entire organization to DevOps. You don't have to blow your entire data center up and immediately move everything up into the cloud. You can do this incrementally. You have a project here and a project there, and we are huge fans, if you didn't know it, about project-based, keeping things constrained and managed around, the concept of a project. So, get out there, experiment with this stuff. Go read Phoenix Project. Follow that up by reading Continuous Integration. That'll give you some good sense of kind of at a deeper level of how this works. And if you're even just a moderate technologist, you can get started pretty quickly and play with some of these things. Come to our cloud training. We've got our Black Hat training coming up, and if the students are advanced enough, I'll be able to actually demonstrate a bunch of this stuff and pull it in. Yeah, I probably need
When
to.
you get tired of that, you can meet me, by some pool under an umbrella drinking something.
Yeah,
That's where
yeah.
I'll be on
I'm going to
Tuesday.
make you come teach with me this year, not just Jamie.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. So it's good stuff. But yeah.
Well,
Anyway,
you got places to be, man. You got places to be,
I
right?
was
So
closing, and you cut me off during
it's
my.
well, we need to recognize, big milestones. So Rich's having an anniversary this weekend. Congratulations, Rich, and his lovely wife. Or am I allowed to say her name? I don't know. We have
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
the
Sharon.
bonus side. So Sharon, yeah. So Rich and Sharon, happy anniversary. That's fantastic news that you continue to put up with this knucklehead for years at a time. Have fun with that. But no, you got a great weekend playing. It's going to be great. Have fun. Have
It,
fun.
literally counting the days to abandon our children. Like I'm like 4 more days, and we get to dump them off on grandma, and we're good to go. And that is now down to 20 minutes. So I'm gonna go away right
Yes.
now.
Have
All
fun.
right. Have a good weekend, Michael, and everybody
Okay, pal.
else. Have a good
You too.
week. We'll talk to you next week.